I was standing in my own kitchen on a Tuesday morning, wiping down the counters after making breakfast for 3 people, when my daughter-in-law Crystal looked me straight in the eye and said, "If you don't like living with us, feel free to leave." My blood turned to ice. They had been living in my house, rent-free, for 8 months. This was my home. My late husband and I bought it 32 years ago. And here was this woman, telling me to leave. My son Derek stood behind her, silent, nodding his head in agreement. I walked to my bedroom and closed the door behind me, my hands shaking so badly, I had to grip the doorknob with both hands. For a long moment, I just stood there, trying to process what had just happened. 8 months ago, Derek had called me, his voice thick with worry. He had lost his job at the manufacturing plant where he had worked for 6 years. Crystal was only working part-time at a boutique. They needed help, just temporarily, just until Derek found something new. Could they stay with me for a few weeks? Of course I said yes. He was my son, my only child. I had 3 bedrooms in this house, plenty of space. I told them not to worry about rent. I cooked their meals. I paid the utilities. I did their laundry because Crystal said she was too stressed to keep up with housework. I told myself I was helping them get back on their feet. But weeks turned into months. Derek went to a few job interviews, but nothing seemed to stick. Crystal cut her hours at the boutique even more, saying the stress was affecting her health. And slowly, so slowly I barely noticed it happening, they had taken over my home. Their belongings filled the living room. Crystal rearranged my kitchen cabinets. They stayed up late, watching television at full volume. When I asked them to keep it down, Crystal would sigh dramatically and say I was being unreasonable. The disrespect had been building for the past 2 months. Little comments, eye rolls. Crystal contradicting me in my own house. And Derek, my Derek, the little boy I had raised alone after his father died, just went along with everything she said. He barely looked at me anymore. When I tried to talk to him alone, he made excuses to leave the room. This morning, I had simply asked them to clean up the living room. There were pizza boxes from 3 days ago, empty soda cans, Crystal's magazines spread across every surface. It was a reasonable request. And that was when Crystal said those words that changed everything. I stood in my bedroom, looking around at the furniture I had chosen, the photographs of my late husband on the dresser, the quilt my mother had made hanging on the wall. This was my house, mine, and I was not leaving it. I made a decision right then. If they wanted someone to leave, it would be them. I waited until I heard the front door close. Crystal always went to yoga on Tuesday afternoons, and Derek had started going with her. They would be gone for at least 2 hours. I walked down the hallway to the guest bedroom, the room that had become theirs, and I opened the door. Their belongings were everywhere. Crystal's clothes overflowing from the closet, Derek's shoes scattered across the floor, makeup and hair products covering the dresser. I pulled 2 large suitcases from the closet and opened them on the bed. Then I started packing. I folded Crystal's clothes methodically, one item at a time. Designer jeans that must have cost $200, silk blouses, expensive yoga wear with tags still attached. My hands slowed as I looked at these items. They had been crying poverty for 8 months, claiming they could not afford to move out, could not contribute to groceries. But Crystal had been buying designer clothes? I kept packing, moving faster now, anger fueling my movements. I packed Derek's belongings too, my heart breaking as I folded his favorite plaid shirt, the one he had worn in high school. Where had that boy gone? When had he turned into someone who would let his wife disrespect his mother in her own home? I had nearly finished packing the second suitcase when I heard the front door open. My heart jumped into my throat. They were not supposed to be back for another hour. Forgot my phone, I heard Crystal call out. I heard her footsteps coming down the hallway. I kept folding clothes, my hands steady, even though my pulse was racing. The bedroom door swung open. Crystal stood in the doorway, staring at the packed suitcases on the bed. For a moment, her face showed genuine shock. Then her expression changed, hardening into something cold and calculating. "What do you think you are doing?" Her voice was ice. I straightened up, meeting her eyes. "You said if I did not like living with you, I should leave. Well, this is my house, so you are leaving." Something flickered across her face. Not anger, not shock, something worse. She pulled out her phone. "Put those down and get out of this room," I said, my voice rising. "Get out of my house." Crystal did not move. She was typing on her phone, her fingers moving quickly. Then she lifted it to her ear. "Yes, I need police at 84 Maple Grove Drive," she said, her voice suddenly shaking, tearful. "It's my mother-in-law. She's having some kind of episode. I'm really worried about her." My stomach dropped to my feet. "She's been acting confused and aggressive," Crystal continued into the phone, throwing our belongings around, saying things that don't make sense. "She's not herself. I think she might be having a breakdown." "That's not true," I said loudly, hoping the operator could hear me. "I'm not confused. This is my house. I'm asking them to leave." Crystal turned away from me, lowering her voice. "She's getting more agitated. I'm scared. Please send someone quickly." She ended the call and looked at me with an expression I can only describe as triumphant. "They'll be here in 20 minutes. You just made a very big mistake." 20 minutes felt like 20 seconds. I stood in the living room, my mind racing, trying to figure out what to do. Crystal had called Derek, and he had rushed back home. Now they both sat on the couch, Crystal with her head on his shoulder, playing the part of the concerned, frightened family member. "Mom, what were you thinking?" Derek asked. But there was no real question in his voice. He had already chosen his side. "I was thinking that this is my house," I said, "and I want you both to leave." The doorbell rang. Crystal jumped up to answer it, and 2 police officers stepped into my living room. They looked professional and calm, and they looked at me with careful, assessing eyes. "I'm Officer Daniels," the first one said. "This is Officer Hayes. We got a call about a disturbance?" Crystal launched into her performance before I could speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she explained how worried she had been about me. "She's been acting strange for weeks," she said. "Forgetting things. Getting confused about what day it is. But today, I came home and found her throwing our belongings around, yelling about voices, saying we were trying to steal from her." "That's not true," I said, but my voice came out too loud, too desperate. I could hear how I sounded. "I was packing their things because this is my house, and I want them to leave." Officer Daniels nodded slowly. "Ma'am, this is your house?" "Yes. It's been my house for 32 years. Mom has been getting forgetful," Derek said quietly, reluctantly, like it hurt him to say it. "Sometimes she doesn't remember things clearly. She gets confused about what's real." Crystal pulled out her phone. "I've been so worried, I started recording some of the episodes, just to show doctors, to help her get treatment." She showed the officers her phone. I could not see what was on the screen, but I watched their faces as they looked. Their expressions grew more concerned, more certain that something was wrong with me. "Those are taken out of context," I said. "She's manipulating you." "When was the last time you saw a doctor, ma'am?" Officer Hayes asked gently. "I'm not sick," I said. "I'm perfectly healthy. They've been living here free for 8 months. I just want them to leave." Derek stood up and pulled papers from his jacket pocket. "Actually, officers, I've been paying rent. I have check stubs here." He handed papers to Officer Daniels. I stared at Derek. Those papers were fake. They had to be. He had never paid me a single dollar. But the officers were looking at the documents, nodding. "Mom, you forgot," Derek said softly. "You keep forgetting that I pay you every month." Crystal spoke up again, her voice wobbling. "We've been worried about early dementia. It runs in her family. Her mother had it." That part was true. My mother had developed dementia in her 70s, but I was 68 and my mind was perfectly clear. They were using my family history against me. Officer Daniels looked at me with kind, pitying eyes. "Ma'am, do you have anyone else who can check in on you? Other family?" "I don't need anyone to check on me," I said. I need them to leave my house." The officers exchanged a glance. "We're not going to arrest anyone today," Officer Daniels said. "But we strongly recommend you get a medical evaluation, ma'am. Sometimes, changes in behavior can indicate underlying health issues." Derek nodded eagerly. "I'll make sure she sees a doctor. I've been trying, but she refuses." Crystal touched Officer Daniels's arm. "Thank you so much for coming. We'll keep a close eye on her." After the officers left, with several concerned backward glances at me, I stood in my living room, feeling like the walls were closing in. Crystal was smiling, a small, satisfied smile that she did not bother to hide. "You tried," she said. "Now you know what happens when you try." I went to my bedroom and closed the door. My hands were shaking. I needed help, legal help. Tomorrow, I would call my attorney. The next morning, I waited until Derek and Crystal left the house before I called Martin Hughes. He had been my attorney for 15 years, had handled my late husband's estate and my will. When I explained what was happening, his voice was immediately concerned. "Barbara, that's terrible. Let me look into eviction procedures for you. First, I need to confirm the property ownership. The house is solely in your name, correct?" "Yes," I said. "My husband left it to me. It's been in my name for 15 years. "Good. Let me pull the property records, and I'll call you back within a few hours. We'll get this sorted out." For the first time in 2 days, I felt a flutter of hope. Martin would help me. Everything would be okay. Derek and Crystal came home around noon, carrying shopping bags. More things they supposedly could not afford. They were being sweet now, overly sweet. Crystal made me a sandwich for lunch without being asked. Derek hugged me and said, "We love you, Mom. We're just worried about you." I played along, pretending to accept their concern, while inside I was counting the minutes until Martin called back. The phone rang at 3:30. I grabbed it, seeing Martin's number on the caller ID. "Martin," I said, relief flooding through me. "Barbara." His voice was strange, confused and concerned. "I pulled the property records like I said I would. But there's been a change, a significant change." My stomach clenched. "What kind of change?" 6 weeks ago, the house title was transferred into a trust. Derek is listed as the trustee with power of attorney over the property. You're listed as the beneficiary, but he has legal control. The room tilted. I sat down hard on my bed. "What? That's impossible. I never did that." "Someone with power of attorney filed the paperwork," Martin said. "I'm looking at what appears to be your signature on the documents." "I never gave Derek power of attorney," I said. "Never. Someone forged my signature." There was a pause. "Barbara, are you absolutely certain? These are serious accusations." Then I remembered. 3 months ago, maybe 4, Crystal had brought me a stack of papers. She said they were medical forms, updates for my health insurance. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table, Crystal standing over me, pointing at lines where I needed to sign. "Just here, and here, and here," she had said. I had trusted her. I had signed without reading carefully. "Oh God," I whispered. "The medical forms. They weren't medical forms." I explained to Martin what had happened. His silence on the other end of the line was heavy. "That would constitute fraud," he finally said. "But Barbara, we need to prove it. We need to prove either that the signature was forged, or that you were not mentally competent when you signed, or that you were deceived. That takes time. It requires going to court. Meanwhile, legally, Derek has control of the property. So I can't kick them out of my own house? Not without a legal battle. And I have to be honest with you, if they're building a case that you're mentally incompetent, this could get very complicated." After I hung up with Martin, I sat on my bed for a long time, trying to understand how my life had fallen apart so completely in just a few days. When I finally emerged from my bedroom, I found Derek in the kitchen. Crystal was out somewhere. "You forged power of attorney documents?" I asked him directly. Derek's face went through several emotions. Surprise, discomfort, then defensiveness. "Mom, you're getting older. We were protecting you." "Protecting me? By stealing my house?" We're not stealing anything. You signed those papers. You just don't remember. That's the whole problem, Mom. You forget things. Important things. I did not forget. Crystal tricked me. Crystal's voice came from behind me. I had not heard her come in. We've been managing things because you were making poor financial decisions. She was holding a folder, and she opened it on the kitchen table. Inside were papers, documents, printouts. She pointed to a charitable donation I had made to my church last year, $5,000 for their building fund. This, she said, you gave away $5,000 without thinking about your retirement, your future care needs. That's not rational. That's my money to spend how I want, I said. She flipped through more pages. A medical appointment I had missed. I had rescheduled it because I had the flu, but she presented it as evidence of forgetfulness. Bills she claimed I had forgotten to pay, even though I had everything on automatic payment. Little moments of normal absent-mindedness that she had documented and twisted into evidence of cognitive decline. We've been watching this get worse for months, Crystal said calmly. We had to take action. Derek would not meet my eyes. It's for your own good, Mom. I looked at my son and barely recognized him. Crystal had built her case so carefully, so methodically, and I had walked right into her trap. Martin advised me to see my doctor, to get a formal evaluation proving my mental competency. It was the only way to challenge the power of attorney. I made an appointment with Dr. Patricia Sanders, my physician for the past 15 years. The appointment was scheduled for 3 days away. Those 3 days felt like 3 years. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything that happened, trying to document the truth before Crystal could twist it. But everything I tried to do, they blocked. I tried to call my best friend Helen. We had been friends since our daughters were in kindergarten together. She would believe me, she would help. But when I picked up the phone, I got a recorded message. Service disconnected. Derek was in the kitchen. I went to him, holding the phone. The phone's not working. He barely looked up from his coffee. Oh, yeah, the bill didn't get paid. I took care of it, but it'll be a few days before service is restored. I have automatic payment set up for the phone bill, I said. You thought you did, he said. But you didn't. That's part of the problem, Mom. I went to my computer to check my bank account online to prove the payments were set up. But when I tried to log in, my password did not work. I tried 3 times, and each attempt failed. Derek appeared in the doorway of my office. I had to change your passwords, he said. You almost fell for a phishing scam last week. I'm keeping your accounts secure. There was no phishing scam, I said. He just shook his head sadly and walked away. I decided to drive to Helen's house. I would tell her everything in person, but when I went to the hook where I always kept my car keys, they were gone. I searched the kitchen, the living room, my bedroom, no keys. Crystal found me searching. Looking for these? She held up my key ring. We took them after you almost caused an accident last week. You ran a red light. We were so scared. You could have killed someone. I never ran a red light, I said. Give me my keys. No, she said simply. It's not safe for you to drive anymore. I was trapped. No phone, no internet access, no car. I could not leave the house, could not contact anyone. I was a prisoner in my own home. The day before my doctor's appointment, Crystal made an elaborate dinner. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. She was playing the role of dutiful daughter-in-law again. I want to start over, she said as we sat down to eat. I know things have been tense. Let's make peace. I was suspicious, but I was also hungry and exhausted. I ate the dinner. The chicken was tender, seasoned perfectly. But halfway through the meal, something felt wrong. The room started spinning. I tried to focus on my plate, but it seemed to be moving, tilting. I could hear Crystal's voice, but it sounded like it was coming from very far away. Are you okay? She was saying. Barbara, can you hear me? I tried to answer, but my words came out garbled. I could not make my mouth form the sounds I wanted. I pushed back from the table, trying to stand, and knocked over my water glass. I heard it shatter on the floor, but the sound was muted, distant. Derek's face swam in my vision. "Mom? Mom, what's wrong? Do you know what day it is?" I could not answer. I could not remember what day it was. I could not remember where I was. The confusion was terrifying, complete. "Who's the president?" I heard Crystal ask. "Barbara, can you tell me who the president is?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Or maybe something did, but it was gibberish. Then I saw the phone in Crystal's hand. She was recording. The whole thing. She was recording me at my most confused, most vulnerable, getting evidence of my cognitive decline. The episode lasted about 30 minutes. Gradually, the spinning slowed. The confusion lifted. I found myself sitting on the floor of the dining room, Derek holding my arm, Crystal crouched beside me, with fake concern painted on her face. And I knew what had happened. The dinner had tasted slightly bitter. She had drugged me, put something in my food to make me confused and disoriented. And now she had video evidence of me seeming to have a cognitive episode. "We should take her to the hospital," Derek was saying. "No," Crystal said quickly. "She has her doctor's appointment tomorrow. We'll tell Dr. Sanders about this. She needs to know." I went to my bedroom that night and lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Crystal had thought of everything. She had created the perfect trap, and I was caught in it. The next morning, Derek drove me to Dr. Sanders' office. Crystal came too, for support. In the waiting room, I watched Crystal speak privately with the nurse at the desk, saw papers exchanged, saw the nurse's expression become serious. When Dr. Sanders called me back to the exam room, she seemed different, more clinical, more distant. She asked me questions about my memory, my daily activities, questions she had never asked in 15 years of treating me. "Dr. Sanders," I said, "something's happening. My son and his wife are trying to take my house. They forged documents. They're gaslighting me." Dr. Sanders nodded, making notes. "When did these concerns start, Barbara?" The way she said it, so careful, so neutral, I realized she did not believe me. Crystal had gotten to her first. "I'm not paranoid," I said. "This is really happening." "I'm not saying you're paranoid," Dr. Sanders said gently. "But sometimes, as we age, we can misinterpret situations. We can become suspicious of people who are trying to help us." Crystal knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I wanted you to see this." She showed Dr. Sanders her phone, the video from last night. I watched Dr. Sanders' face as she viewed the recording, watched her expression change from professional concern to deep worry. "How often do these episodes happen?" Dr. Sanders asked. "A few times a week," Crystal lied smoothly. "She gets very disoriented. Sometimes aggressive." Dr. Sanders set down her phone. "Barbara, I can't diagnose dementia in a single visit, but I'm very concerned by what I'm seeing. I'm going to refer you to a neurologist for a complete evaluation." "I don't need a neurologist," I said. "I need you to believe me." Dr. Sanders patted my hand. The gesture felt like defeat. On the drive home, sitting in the back seat like a child while Derek drove and Crystal sat in front, I stared out the window and wondered how I was going to survive this. A week passed. The worst week of my life. Martin was working on challenging the power of attorney, but he told me these things took time. Meanwhile, I was still trapped in my house with Derek and Crystal, and the walls were closing in tighter every day. Then, one morning, there was a knock at the door. A woman in her 40s stood on my porch, holding a tablet and wearing an official-looking badge. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Janet Morrison from Adult Protective Services. May I come in?" My heart sank. Someone had reported me to APS. I knew without asking that it had been Crystal. Janet interviewed all three of us separately. When it was my turn, I sat across from her at my kitchen table and tried to explain what was really happening. "They forged power of attorney documents," I said. "They're trying to steal my house. Crystal has been drugging me, creating fake evidence that I'm mentally incompetent." Even as I said the words, I could hear how they sounded. Paranoid. Delusional. Exactly like someone with dementia would sound. Janet listened carefully, making notes. Do you feel safe in this home? No, I said honestly. I want them to leave. But they won't go. After she spoke with me, Janet interviewed Derek and Crystal. I watched from the living room as they presented their case. Derek showed her the spare bedroom closet, where they had installed safety rails I had never asked for. Crystal produced detailed logs of my supposed episodes, with dates and times and descriptions. She showed Janet her videos, her photos, the notes from Dr. Sanders. Then, Derek brought out something I had not seen before. A thick folder of guardianship paperwork. My hands went cold. When Janet came back to speak with me, her expression was gentle but firm. Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're having some conflict with your son and daughter-in-law, but from what I'm seeing, they're very concerned about your welfare. They're trying to help you. I don't need their help, I said. I need them to leave. Derek has mentioned that guardianship proceedings have been filed. Were you aware of that? I was not aware. Horror washed over me. No. When? The court date is in 2 weeks. I want you to know that Adult Protective Services will be monitoring the situation. If you ever feel you're in immediate danger, you can call us. She handed me a business card. After Janet left, I tried to hold myself together. But when the door closed, Crystal turned to me with her true face, the mask finally dropping. We filed for guardianship 3 weeks ago, she said. With all the evidence we have, the judge will grant it. And once Derek is your legal guardian, he gets to make all your decisions, including where you live. What do you mean, where I live? But I already knew. I could see it in her eyes. We've already picked out a lovely memory care facility for you, Crystal continued. Her voice was almost cheerful. It's in Arizona, very highly rated. The sunny weather will be good for you. You'll be well taken care of. You're going to put me in a nursing home? My voice came out as a whisper. Memory care? Crystal corrected. And yes, this house is far too much for you to handle. Once you're settled in Arizona, we'll stay here. Eventually, we'll sell the place. Use the money for your care. Everyone wins. Except I lose everything, I said. She shrugged. You're losing it anyway. At least this way you'll be safe. Derek stood behind her, and for the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. But he said nothing. If you fight this, Crystal warned, we'll make sure the court knows you're violent and unstable. You could end up in a psychiatric hospital instead. Is that what you want? I had 2 weeks. 2 weeks to stop this nightmare. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Around 2 a.m, I heard a soft knock on my bedroom door. Mom? It was Derek's voice, barely a whisper. He came in and sat on the edge of my bed, just like he used to do when he was a little boy and had a nightmare. But now he was the nightmare. Mom, I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. Then stop this, I said. Please. He shook his head. I can't. She'll leave me if I don't go through with it, she threatened. She said if I backed out now, she'd take everything and I'd be left with nothing. So you're choosing her over your own mother? I love her, he said miserably. I know she's done bad things. I know this isn't right, but I can't lose her. Derek, this woman is destroying me. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, her real name is Crystal Ann Brennan. She did this before, to her own grandmother in Ohio. She got caught and served probation. That's why she changed her tactics this time, made everything look legal. There's a record of it if you look in Cuyahoga County. Why are you telling me this? Because I hate myself, he said simply. Because you're my mom, and I'm betraying you. I can't stop Crystal, but maybe you can use this information somehow. He stood up. Her email password is the same password she uses for everything. Crystal, and then the year she was born, 1991, all one word. She keeps files on her email, plans, communications with her lawyer. I don't know if it helps, but it's all I can give you. Then he left. and I was alone again in the dark. The next day, I waited until Derek and Crystal left the house. Derek always took his laptop with him, but I had an old desktop computer in my office. I powered it up, my hands shaking. Using the password Derek had given me, I accessed Crystal's email account. What I found there made my blood run cold. Emails to and from a lawyer, discussions about expediting guardianship, strategies for proving incompetence, emails to memory care facilities in Arizona, asking about pricing and availability. She had been planning this for months, maybe even before they moved into my house. There were also emails to someone named Taylor. The messages were casual, friendly, discussing the plan and how well it was working. Taylor congratulated Crystal on her performance, asked about the timeline. In one email, Taylor wrote, "Once the house sells, we split the proceeds 50-50 like we agreed." Crystal had an accomplice. This was bigger than I thought. I found an old USB drive in my desk drawer and downloaded everything. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence. Then I found my old digital camera, the one Derek had given me for Christmas 5 years ago. I photographed the computer screen showing Crystal's emails, making sure the sender and dates were visible. I had evidence now, real evidence. But I had to get it to someone who would believe me. Someone who could stop this. I hid the USB drive and camera in a place Crystal would never think to look, inside an old photo album in the bottom drawer of my dresser, underneath pictures from Derek's childhood. I had 9 days until the guardianship hearing. 9 days to figure out how to use this evidence to save myself. Martin told me the best thing I could do was get to him with the evidence. But I had no phone, no car, no way to leave the house without Derek and Crystal knowing. I studied their patterns, watched their schedules. Every Tuesday and Thursday, they left together at 10 in the morning. Crystal saw a therapist, and Derek waited in the car for her. They were always gone for exactly 2 hours. I would make my move on Thursday. That Thursday morning, I played my part perfectly. At breakfast, I asked Derek what day it was, making my voice confused and uncertain. Crystal exchanged a satisfied look with him. At 9:50, they grabbed their bags and headed for the door. "We'll be back in a couple hours, Mom," Derek said. "Will you be okay here alone?" "I'll be fine," I said, making myself sound vague and elderly. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, I moved into action. I retrieved the USB drive and camera from their hiding place, put them in my purse. Then I searched the kitchen junk drawer, digging through old keys and rubber bands and batteries. "Please let it be here," I prayed. My fingers closed around a spare car key. They had taken my main key ring, but they had forgotten about this one. I grabbed it and ran to the garage. My hands shook so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine started. I backed out of the garage, down the driveway, onto the street. I kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting Derek's car to appear behind me, but the street stayed empty. I drove to Martin's law office in downtown Riverside, 10 miles from my house. The whole way, I felt like I was escaping from prison. The receptionist looked surprised to see me without an appointment. I must have looked terrible, frantic and disheveled and desperate. "I need to see Martin," I said. "It's an emergency." Martin came out of his office immediately, took one look at me, and ushered me inside. "Barbara, what happened?" The whole story poured out of me, all of it, everything I had been holding inside. When I finished, I handed him the USB drive. "It's all here. Emails between Crystal and her lawyer. Plans to sell my house. Communications with someone named Taylor about splitting the money. She did this before, in Ohio, to her own grandmother." Martin connected the USB drive to his computer and began reading. His expression grew darker with every email he opened. "This is fraud," he said finally. "Forgery. Elder abuse. Barbara, we need to file a police report immediately. I know a detective who specializes in these cases. Let me call her." Hope flooded through me for the first time in weeks. Finally, someone believed me. Martin called Detective Rachel Morrison. She agreed to meet us at the police station right away. Martin drove me there, and we were shown to her office. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and professional. I was halfway through explaining everything when the door to her office burst open. Crystal and Derek rushed in, and my hopes shattered like glass. Crystal looked frantic, tears streaming down her face. "There she is. Thank God you found her. We've been looking everywhere." "I wasn't lost," I said, but my voice was drowned out by Crystal's crying. "She took my car," Crystal said to Detective Morrison. "She has dementia. She's not supposed to drive. We were terrified she'd hurt herself or someone else. We've been driving around searching for her." "That's not her car," I said. "It's my car, my house. Everything is mine." Derek stepped forward, looking genuinely worried. "Mom, we were so scared. You can't just disappear like that." "I didn't disappear. I came here to report a crime." Crystal fumbled in her purse and pulled out papers. "Detective, I have guardianship paperwork here. My husband is in the process of becoming her legal guardian because she can't take care of herself anymore. We're very concerned about her mental state." She showed Detective Morrison the videos on her phone, the ones of me looking confused and disoriented. This was 3 days ago. She didn't know where she was or what day it was. "Because you drugged me," I said. Crystal's face crumpled. She truly believes that. It's heartbreaking to hear her say these things. Martin stepped in. "Bless him. Detective Morrison, I'm Mrs. Thompson's attorney. We have evidence of a systematic fraud against her." He held up the USB drive. "This contains emails proving a conspiracy to steal her property through forged guardianship documents." Crystal's face went pale when she saw the USB drive. Just for a second, her mask slipped. Then it was back, and she was crying again. "I don't know what those are," she said. "But please, we just want to get her home safely." Detective Morrison held up her hands. "Everyone, calm down. Let me look at this evidence." She took the USB drive from Martin and connected it to her computer. Crystal and Derek waited in the hallway while she reviewed the files. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes where I barely breathed. Finally, Detective Morrison looked up. "This is concerning evidence. I'm going to need to investigate this thoroughly. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Hughes, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. However," she paused, "I need to be honest. Both sides here have compelling evidence. This is going to take time to sort out properly. I can't make any arrests today without completing a full investigation." "How much time?" Martin asked. "At least a week, maybe 2. The guardianship hearing is in 5 days," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "I'll contact the court," Detective Morrison said. "Let them know there's an active investigation. That might delay the hearing." "What about right now?" I asked. "Can I go home safely?" Detective Morrison looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm not going to force you to go anywhere you don't feel safe. But legally, I can't prevent your family from being in their residence either." "It's my residence," I said. But even I could hear the defeat in my voice. Martin arranged for me to stay at a hotel. He paid with his credit card, said we would sort out the money later. He drove me there himself. "You're safe now," he said. "Detective Morrison is taking this seriously. She'll investigate. Everything will be okay." I nodded, wanting to believe him. That evening, I took a long shower in the hotel bathroom. I ordered room service. I lay on the hotel bed and felt safe for the first time in weeks. I was so exhausted that I fell asleep while it was still light outside. I woke to pounding on the door. Loud, aggressive pounding that made my heart lurch in my chest. I looked at the clock. 11:30 at night. "Police! Open the door!" I stumbled to the door, confused and frightened. 2 officers stood in the hallway, different ones from before. "Are you Barbara Thompson?" "Yes. What's wrong?" "Ma'am, we have a court order for psychiatric evaluation. You need to come with us." "What?" "No. There must be a mistake." They showed me the paperwork. Crystal had filed an emergency petition with a judge, claiming I was a danger to myself. She had provided her videos, her documented evidence of my decline, testimony that I had stolen a car and run away. A judge had signed an order for a 72-hour involuntary psychiatric hold. "This isn't right," I said. "I'm not dangerous. I'm not sick." "Ma'am, we need you to come with us. You can do this voluntarily, or we can compel you. Please don't make this difficult." I thought about fighting. I thought about running. But there were two of them, and I was 68 years old and exhausted and so defeated. I let them take me. They drove me to Meadowbrook Psychiatric Center on the edge of town. I was processed like a criminal. They took my belongings, my clothes, gave me a hospital gown. I was placed in a secure unit with locks on the doors. I had ended up exactly where Crystal wanted me. Locked away, my credibility destroyed. The guardianship hearing was in 5 days. The first psychiatrist who evaluated me at Meadowbrook was named Dr. Raymond Foster. He was maybe 45, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He asked me why I was there. I took a deep breath and told him everything. I kept my voice steady, presented the facts chronologically, tried to sound as rational as possible. But even to my own ears, the story sounded unbelievable. A conspiracy to steal my house, forged documents, being drugged, an accomplice named Taylor. It sounded like paranoia. Dr. Foster took notes. When I finished, he asked, "Do you often feel that people are plotting against you?" "No," I said. "This is the first time anything like this has happened. And your son is part of this conspiracy?" "Yes, I know how it sounds." He nodded, his face carefully neutral. "We're going to do a complete evaluation. Standard cognitive tests, psychological assessment. Try to get some rest tonight." I was assigned to a room with another patient, a woman in her 50s who barely acknowledged my existence. I lay on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The guardianship hearing was 5 days away. If I could not get out of here before then, Derek would be granted guardianship by default. I would be trapped forever. On the second day, Crystal came to visit. She brought flowers and played the role of devoted daughter-in-law for every staff member who could see. When we were in the common room with an orderly watching from across the room, Crystal put on her performance. "Barbara," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "How are you feeling?" "You know exactly how I'm feeling," I said quietly. She took my hand, patting it like I was a confused child. "Do you remember me?" I pulled my hand away. "Of course I remember you. You forged documents and had me committed." To the orderly listening, it must have sounded like I was being unreasonable, paranoid. Crystal sighed sadly. "The doctors are going to help you," she said. Then she leaned close, so close that only I could hear her whisper. 3 more days until the guardianship hearing. Enjoy your stay." She left, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The orderly looked at me with pity. The next day, I met with Dr. Susan Marshall, a psychiatrist in her 50s, who was assigned to do my full evaluation. She conducted standard cognitive tests: memory, orientation, problem solving. I passed every single one easily. My mind was sharp and clear. Dr. Marshall made careful notes. "Your cognitive function is excellent," she said. "Tell me about the circumstances that brought you here." Once again, I explained everything. This time, I made sure to mention Martin, my attorney, and the evidence we had given to Detective Morrison. I mentioned my friend Helen, who I had not spoken to in weeks but who knew me well. Dr. Marshall listened, without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Is there anyone who can corroborate your version of events?" "Yes. Martin Hughes, my attorney. He has all the evidence, and Detective Rachel Morrison is investigating." Dr. Marshall made a note. "I'm going to contact them. I need to verify your story." For the first time since being brought to Meadowbrook, I felt a spark of hope. Over the next day, Dr. Marshall was thorough. She called Martin, who confirmed everything, and offered to send copies of all the evidence. She contacted Detective Morrison, who confirmed there was an active investigation. She spoke with my primary physician, Dr. Sanders, who admitted that Crystal had seemed very controlling during my last appointment. Dr. Marshall also ordered a tox screen on my blood. When the results came back, they showed traces of benzodiazepines, sedative drugs that I had never been prescribed. evidence that I had been drugged. Dr. Marshall came to see me with her findings. Mrs. Thompson, I believe you. This has all the hallmarks of elder abuse. The pattern of isolation, the manufactured evidence, the systematic destruction of your credibility. I've seen cases like this before. Relief flooded through me so intensely I started crying. Thank you for believing me. However, she continued, we have a problem. You were committed under a 72-hour involuntary hold. By law, I cannot release you early without a judge's order. And your guardianship hearing is tomorrow. My relief turned to ash. If Derek is granted guardianship tomorrow, what happens? If he's your legal guardian, he would have the authority to keep you here indefinitely, or transfer you to another facility. Can you attend the hearing? I asked desperately. Can you testify that I'm competent? She nodded. Yes. I'm going to call the court right now and request to testify as an expert witness. I'll provide my professional opinion that you are mentally competent and a victim of abuse. That evening, Martin came to visit me. I have news, he said. Detective Morrison worked fast. She tracked down Taylor, Crystal's accomplice. Taylor is actually Crystal's cousin. They've run this scam together 3 times before, in different states. Under interrogation, Taylor cracked and provided a full statement. So they can arrest Crystal? They're waiting until after the guardianship hearing. They want everything documented through the court first. But yes, there will be arrests. What about Derek? I asked, even though I was not sure I wanted to know the answer. He'll likely face charges too, unless he cooperates fully and testifies against Crystal. I thought about my son, the little boy I had raised alone, and wondered where everything had gone so wrong. There's more good news, Martin continued. Your friend Helen came forward. She had been trying to reach you for weeks. When she finally drove to your house, Crystal told her you had dementia and did not want visitors. Helen was suspicious. She did her own research and found records of Crystal's case in Ohio, the one involving her grandmother. She brought everything to Detective Morrison yesterday. Helen, my best friend for 30 years. She had not forgotten me. She'll be at the hearing tomorrow too, Martin said. We have quite a group assembling. Dr. Marshall, Detective Morrison, Helen, me. The truth is going to come out, Barbara. That night, I barely slept. The guardianship hearing would determine everything. My freedom, my home, my entire future. The next morning, I was transported to the courthouse in hospital clothes. I had not been allowed to wear my own clothing. I felt vulnerable and exposed, but I held my head high. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Whitmore presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Derek and Crystal sat on one side with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. I sat with Martin on the other side. Also present were Detective Morrison, Dr. Marshall, and Helen. When I saw Helen, I wanted to cry. She gave me an encouraging smile. The hearing began. Derek's attorney presented their case first, and it was damning. He showed all the evidence Crystal had collected. The videos of me confused and disoriented. The photos of me looking disheveled. Dr. Sanders' notes about recommending a neurological evaluation. The APS report. The fact that I had been involuntarily committed to psychiatric care. Your Honor, their attorney said, Mrs. Thompson is clearly unable to care for herself. She believes in conspiracies, accuses her devoted family of trying to harm her, and exhibits signs of advanced dementia. Her son Derek loves his mother and wants only to ensure she receives proper care. We ask that you grant him guardianship so he can make medical and financial decisions in her best interest. Crystal took the stand and testified. She was magnificent in her role, tearful and concerned, speaking about how much she loved me and how heartbreaking it was to watch my decline. We just want her to be safe, she said, her voice breaking. Derek testified next. He looked miserable, could barely meet my eyes. He confirmed Crystal's version of events, talked about my forgetfulness, my confusion, my accusations. Judge Whitmore looked sympathetic. I felt the case slipping away. Then it was our turn. Martin called Dr. Marshall first. Dr. Marshall testified about her evaluation of me. Mrs. Thompson is cognitively intact. She passed every cognitive assessment with flying colors. Her memory is excellent. Her reasoning is sound. Moreover, I found benzodiazepines in her system, drugs she was not prescribed. In my professional opinion, she was deliberately drugged to create the appearance of cognitive decline. The judge's expression shifted. Detective Morrison testified next. She explained the investigation, the forged power of attorney documents, the emails discussing plans to sell my house and put me in a facility in Arizona. She presented Taylor's confession about running this scam multiple times. We have evidence that Crystal Brennan did this before in Ohio to her own grandmother, Detective Morrison said. She served probation for elder abuse. She changed her tactics this time to make everything appear legal. But it's the same pattern of behavior. Crystal's attorney objected repeatedly, but the evidence was overwhelming. Helen testified about knowing me for 30 years, about my sharp mind and independent nature before Derek and Crystal moved in. She described how they had isolated me, refused to let her visit, cut me off from my support system. Finally, Martin presented the USB drive evidence, the emails between Crystal and her lawyer, between Crystal and Taylor, plans to sell the house, discussions about splitting the proceeds. It was all there in black and white. Judge Whitmore studied the evidence for a long time. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of pages turning. Finally, she looked up. "I've seen enough," she said. Her voice was cold. "This is one of the most egregious cases of attempted elder abuse I've encountered in my 23 years on the bench." She looked directly at Derek and Crystal. "The guardianship petition is denied. Moreover, I'm declaring the power of attorney documents fraudulent and void. All rights and control of property are restored to Mrs. Thompson, effective immediately." Relief washed over me so powerfully I thought I might faint. Judge Whitmore was not done. "I'm also issuing a restraining order. Derek Thompson and Crystal Brennan are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Mrs. Thompson or her property." At that moment, 2 more police officers entered the courtroom. Detective Morrison nodded to them. They approached Derek and Crystal. "Crystal Ann Brennan and Derek Thompson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, forgery, false imprisonment, and theft by deception." Crystal's mask finally shattered completely. "You told them!" she screamed at Derek. "You weak, pathetic man. This was going to set us up for life, and you ruined it." Derek was crying. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. She made me. She threatened me. I'm so sorry." The officers handcuffed them both and led them from the courtroom. Crystal was still screaming. Derek was sobbing. I watched them go and felt nothing but emptiness. Judge Whitmore addressed me directly. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm also ordering your immediate release from psychiatric hold. You were wrongfully committed. I apologize on behalf of the court system for failing to protect you sooner." Martin drove me home that afternoon. Home. My house. After everything, I was going home. The house was exactly as I had left it. Derek and Crystal's belongings were still scattered everywhere, but it was my house again. Mine. Over the next 2 weeks, the legal process continued. Derek took a plea deal. He testified against Crystal in exchange for a reduced sentence of 2 years in prison. He would also be required to pay restitution. Crystal refused to plead guilty and would go to trial, but with Taylor's testimony and all the evidence, her lawyer was not optimistic about her chances. Helen came to visit me every day, helping me clean out Derek and Crystal's belongings, helping me reclaim my space. Martin helped me change all the locks, reset all my passwords, secure all my accounts. I was safe, I was free, but I had lost my son. One evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset, and I thought about everything that had happened. How close I had come to losing everything. How easily it could have gone the other way if I had not found that evidence, if Dr. Marshall had not believed me, if Helen had not come forward. I thought about other elderly people who might not be as lucky, who might not have a Martin or a Helen or a Dr. Marshall, who might be trapped right now in situations like the one I had barely escaped. The next week, I started volunteering at the senior center downtown. I began speaking to other seniors about the warning signs of elder abuse, about trusting their instincts, about documenting everything, about not being afraid to ask for help. Many of them shared their own stories. Some had family members who controlled their money, isolated them, made them doubt their own minds. I listened and offered resources and tried to help them see they were not alone. One afternoon, a woman approached me after I finished speaking. She was maybe 75, tears in her eyes. "My daughter moved in with me last year," she said quietly. "I thought I was helping her, but now she's telling me I'm too confused to live alone. She's taking over my bank accounts. I thought I was going crazy. But listening to you, I realize what's happening." I gave her Martin's card, Detective Morrison's number, the contact for Adult Protective Services. "You're not crazy," I told her, "and you're not alone. Fight back while you still can." She hugged me, and I felt like maybe something good could come from my nightmare after all. I learned the hardest way that sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones we need protection from. Family does not always mean safety. Love does not always mean loyalty. But I also learned that I am stronger than I ever knew I could be. At 68 years old, when everything was stacked against me, when everyone doubted my sanity, when I was drugged and gaslit and imprisoned, I still fought back, and I won. My house is quiet now, sometimes too quiet. I miss having Derek here, miss the son he used to be before Crystal twisted him into someone I did not recognize. Maybe someday, after he serves his time, after he gets help, we can rebuild some kind of relationship, but that's for the future. For now, I water my garden. I have coffee with Helen every Tuesday morning. I volunteer at the senior center. I live my life on my own terms, in my own house, making my own decisions. I am 68 years old. My mind is sharp. My spirit is unbroken. And I am finally, truly free. If you have ever felt like your reality was being questioned, if you have ever been told you are too old, too confused, too weak to trust your own mind, I want you to know something. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. And fight back with everything you have. You deserve to live with dignity, respect, and freedom, no matter your age. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is refuse to give up on ourselves. Now I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know ever experienced something like this? What would you do if you found yourself in a situation where your own family was working against you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through this right now. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these important stories. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about courage, survival, and fighting back against injustice. Your subscription means the world to me and helps this community grow stronger. Please share this story with anyone you think needs to hear it. You never know who might be silently struggling with elder abuse or family betrayal. Your share could be the thing that helps them realize they're not alone and they can fight back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it was a difficult journey, but I hope it showed you that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Remember, you're stronger than you think, and you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop fighting for what's rightfully yours. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.